So are you kind of glued to the TV watching the news? Are you looking at interest rate headlines? Are you thinking about election rumors, the talk of crashes? Well, honestly, you're not alone. So many people follow these news stories, and it can literally keep you up at night, can't it? It really feels like you're out of control. Welcome to the Property Mindset Podcast, where I'm Emma Howitt, mentor, investor, and your guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. Property isn't just about bricks and mortar. It's about building the life that you truly desire. In this space, we don't just talk about strategy, we deep dive into mindset, and something that I've really found it's often missing in other industries, but has been a real game changer in the professional property circles. So, what are we talking about today? Wow. um, this is a good one. Are you sick of rate rises and headlines? So, today we're going to focus on these 6 things that you can control in property. So, let's turn dreams into actions and actions into success. So, we have literally just had a budget, and it was a fairly average scenario. Lots of people have been talking about it, very unhappy. So, are you sick of these rate rises? Are you sick of these sensational headlines? So, what we're talking about today is controlling the controllables and focusing on actually the 6 things that you really can control in property. So, how can we differentiate control versus concern? So, are you kind of glued to the TV watching the news? Are you looking at interest rate headlines? Are you thinking about election rumors, the talk of crashes? Well, honestly, you're not alone. So many people follow these news stories, and it can literally keep you up at night, can't it? It really feels like you're out of control. So, what I want you to do today, and what I want to talk about, is how you can actually take back that control and move away from being anxious to being really intentional in your property journey. So, if you imagine you have kind of your circle of concern and you have a circle of control, you've really got to basically spend as much time in that area that you can control, because there's literally nothing you can do, can you? You can't control someone else, um, physically anyway. You can't control someone else. You can't control the economy. It is too big. You can't control if the grass is going to grow today. You can't control if a property's value is going to change in some way. So it's all about looking at what you can actually directly influence. And this is really looking about your decisions, your standards, your habits. And I've got some really great quotes today. And the first one is, you can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond to what happens. And in that response is your power. So really think through that. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond to what happens. And in that response is your power. So I think really in property, you just can't control the economy. As you said, you can't control the next government. You can control, though, how you buy, how you fund, how you plan your exit, how you choose and manage your tenants, and also how you show up every day as an investor. So, great book to help have a kind of deeper mindset reframe around setbacks and uncertainty is a book by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. It's really great reading for learning how to turn challenges into fuel instead of fear. So we're now going to go through the 6 controllables. So these are deal analysis, funding, exit planning, demand, tenant selection and management, and personal productivity. So let's jump straight in. So number 1, deal analysis. So this is so key. And I have had people that I mentor saying, oh, I'm just no good at numbers. I just don't want to do it. And that's all very well, but it's kind of like, you've just got to do it. You've got to find a way. You've got to learn. And it's one of those things that the more you repeat, the more you work through it, you start to get, much more confident. And it may be that you work with a partner or whatever, but it has to be done. You cannot do a deal without real deep dive analysis. So you can have literally 2 investors looking at the same property, and one will perhaps run through the numbers. They will obviously do stress testing at higher interest rates. They will look at really realistic rents. Obviously, we hope to get the best rent, but equally, you've got to have a realism. And basically, they will walk away if it doesn't stack. Whereas perhaps the other one goes on a bit of gut feel. In fact, I had a business partner who just wanted to go on their gut feel. Oh, I think this is just really great. That did not work with me. But, when they look at that one, they decide that, yeah, this is the property for me. And then at the end of it, they are concerned and blame the market when that deal doesn't work out how they wanted to. A great sort of quote around this one is, success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. And this is so key. Deal analyzing should be a daily thing that you're looking at with all of those properties. You really have to look through. If you're doing proper professional property investing, you are generally looking at a lot of properties and doing analysis on a lot of properties. I interviewed John Howitt, and he is amazing. He can literally analyze a deal in under 2 minutes. Now, I'm not recommending that for you guys because he's been doing it for over 40 years. But every single deal we must go through. And obviously, you can start off with quick overview and then deep dive if it looks like it might work. So goals without plans are just wishes. So you've got to have a clear set of buying rules. And this is literally your kind of minimum deal criteria of what you need. And it can't be this kind of vague thing. Oh, I hope this property, this might work for this and this might work for that. The people that are really successful have a very clear-cut demand-led strategy. So they know exactly what they want. And actually, I'll put a link in the show notes on my strategies podcast as well. That is a really great one. And a great book for anyone who kind of feels that they might get emotional or impulsive when numbers are involved, then Daniel Kahneman has a great book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And this is great for understanding how your brain kind of makes decisions and why slowing down your thinking can really save you from having bad deals. So a really clear one is number 1, deal analysis. And number 2 is obviously your funding strategy. So this sort of second controllable is about you. It's not about the bank deciding your fate. It's about your choices around leveraging buffers and how to structure something. So you could control your loan to value. You can control whether you fix your mortgage or stay on a variable. You can decide whether you use bridging finance, private finance, other people's money. whatever it is that fits with you, you know, and the deal, that is what we have to do. And you can choose to have, obviously savings, and you really must understand that you should have skin in the game. With any kind of property deal, there must be something that you put into it. And a lot of people sort of say, oh, well, I've got let's say the building experience and somebody else has all the money. I always think there has to be a certain amount of skin in the game. So another quote is, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So if you feel that it's really boring doing preparation, you've just got to know that this is an absolute essential. You've got to get that paperwork in order. You've got to have great broker relationships. You've really got to have everything in place. And obviously, the first time you do this, it's going to be, oh, I haven't got this and I haven't got that. But it's really worth getting that paperwork into place so that when a great deal does appear, other people will go, wow, you're really lucky. But that's not the case. You were just really prepared and you had really worked hard to understand what funding would work for that particular one. So if you don't design your own plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. So this is a real key one. So it's not about accepting what other people suggest or, one person suggests. You want to be talking to your peers, your mentor. How might this suit your particular strategy? So the next one is number 3, exit planning. So this is a controllable that you do have. And of course, nothing calms you further than knowing how you're actually going to get out of the deal. But literally before you um, commit to anything, to any deal, you've got to understand how you're going to exit and be aware it cannot just be one exit strategy. You have to have multiples. I've had a really extreme property purchase recently, and every exit strategy that I'd originally thought kept changing because the market changed and everything changed. But I still had further exit strategies to follow to. So it's really, really key. Are you going to refinance and hold it? Are you going to sell it to a very specific type of homeowner? Are you going to sell to another investor? Is it going to be, something that you decide to rent out to a social housing provider? There are so many things that you can do, but you must look at the multiple exits to really understand where it can be, because a lot of people suddenly come to perhaps flipping the property and perhaps the market has shifted a little bit, or perhaps they didn't do their due diligence and they can't get the money necessarily to cover what that property needs to return for them. So this is really key, the exit planning. So a great quote is, plan your work, then work your plan. So it may seem really scary, but it is so useful to have some kind of, I use everything around a spreadsheet, and within that spreadsheet has all my analysis, it has my exit strategies, how that would turn out, and actually writing these things down and having that what if into every scenario, and if this, then what option can I do, is really, really useful to start getting clarity. And talk this through with others, talk it through with your people that support you, your business partners, your mentors, all of those kind of things. It's so key to understand what if. And when you focus on preparation, you spend less time on repair. I love that quote. So we've got to attempt to avoid firefighting. Now, sometimes these things do happen and it can turn out to be a bit of a nightmare, but at least you've got a plan and really think of how you can bridge things and even understand when projects overrun, what things can be done. So, yeah, that is number 3. Number 4 is, and this is so huge, is focus on demand. So this is all about, it's not just about, a whole market. This is the specific demand for the type of property you are planning to do. So a lot of people, they just go and look at the property first, and then you've got so many variables, it makes that really challenging. Whereas actually, if you look at the demand and where you're going to monetize that, then you can be very specific where you go and look. So let's say, for instance, you really want to do serviced accommodation and you really want to do contractors. Well, then you're not going to be choosing a kind of more rural area unless it's right by a huge, a huge brand new development or something. But you want to be going where there's lots of contractors, where there's masses of, Premier Inn hotels that are completely booked out. You want to go for a good size population. All of these things are so key. And in fact, I'm so passionate about this, I've written a book on that. But understanding your demand, and it might be that you're looking at 1 to 2 bedroom conversions with, so you need a minimum of 50 square meters. And clearly it needs to be in an area where there's a massive demand. Lots of people are looking to buy 2-bedroom properties. Maybe it's a place where there's lots of young couples, or maybe it's, a place where there's a massive demand for HMOs. If you're ready to take your property journey to the next level, check out my Property Success Mindset Formula course on Udemy. Inside, you'll discover actionable strategies and exercises designed to shift your thinking, boost your confidence, and help you navigate property challenges with clarity. Whether you're just starting out or looking to break through to a new level, this course delivers the mindset tools professional investors use every day. Visit the link in the show notes to unlock your property potential. Your biggest asset is not your portfolio, but the way you think. So again, you've got to understand how you're going to monetize and where that demand is. Because you absolutely can't control what's happening nationally in the property cycles, but you can definitely look at your local towns and choose, which customers you want to serve, and check whether there is actually real demand. Are these properties selling? In fact, I was talking about bungalows the other day, and this lady was talking about there's a fantastic potential deal, but she couldn't find any comparables because there were no bungalows selling. Well, and there were still bungalows on the market. So this was kind of a bit of a concern to me. So obviously you've got to have real checklists of, what you're going to go through looking for that demand. And it's great. I mean, we've got things like property data, property filter. I'll put links in the show notes for those. They give so much incredible information on how long properties are on the market for. Talk to agents, look at the local employers, hospitals, tourism, what is driving demand in that area. And of course, great quote, where focus goes, energy flows. So you've really got to pour your focus into understanding whether it's your ideal tenant, guest, and literally don't focus on headlines, focus on your market. Another quote is, you may not be able to control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. So this is again aligning with your product that you're creating to answer the local demand instead of finding a strategy that you just fancy doing and being surprised if you can't sell it or find the right results at the end. So a great book to read is The Complete Guide to Property Investment by Rob Dix. It's great for property investors. And in fact, another one that I haven't read for ages, but another great read is Property Magic by Simon Zucci. It's really great for understanding creative strategies, as long as you always ground them, obviously, in demand as well. Number 5, controllable, is tenant selection and management. So you've really got to understand how to manage your properties, because there can be a lot of stress or there can be a lot of kind of peace and calm. So you can control your tenant profile, how you reference, the standards of your referencing, how quickly you respond to issues, whether you run your properties with systems or with firefighting and panic. Do you use a professional management company? Or do you manage it on your own? But do you have support from the NRLA, so the National Residential Landlords Association? They've got incredible support. Do you follow really great industry experts who can help you as well? So a great quote is, "It's the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen." So you've got to be looking at, inspections, great inventories, clear communication, consistent boundaries with your tenants. We have various things where I'm open to help in certain areas, but in fact, the other day I was asked about new wardrobes. We have very specific wardrobes, and one tenant didn't really like them. And it's kind of like, well, that's how we've designed the property. It prevents mold, it keeps airflow, and so we're going to ensure that that's, what you have to have. But we do give some different options. And so again, I'm really, you know, definite on that. Whereas other things I'm a bit more open to. So, be really clear, what are the boundaries within your properties. And another quote is, "You can't always control what happens, but you can control your attitude and your effort." So actually, I put out a post the other day showing one of our rooms in our apartment hotel having been pretty much, you know, trashed. It was so disgusting the way a tenant had left it. But you know what? We so rarely have that. And we have an incredible team who help us to amend that, who take lots of photos, who give feedback, and who are really supportive in getting the property or the room straight back into the being able to be rented out again. So it isn't a state of all tenants are nightmares or all guests are nightmares. That is absolutely not true. But it is to do is, how can I improve my screening, my communication, my systems? And also, yeah, I love systems. There's always, if there's a human involved, there's always going to be errors. So how can I reduce that human error? So these are really key. And there's lots of kind of practical guides. As I've said, I've mentioned the NRLA as well, and I will put a link to them too. And then finally, controllable number 6 is your personal productivity and habits. So this is an incredibly powerful one, and it really kind of hovers over all the rest. Your own productivity and habits will reflect so much in your business and what you do. Because again, I've mentioned many times, you can't choose what the market does, but you can choose how you spend your time and energy. And you can inherently create your own market. And that's by learning, analyzing, calling agents, viewing, rather than just scrolling, comparing, and worrying. You've really got to, and that's where, and this is what I talk to a lot with my new mentees, is looking at what strategies fit their personal circumstances, their loves, what they enjoy doing, so that they can put in a plan of action and stick to it. Because we all know that in property, there's something called the shiny penny syndrome, and it's so easy to jump from one thing to another. But inherently, that then means that we're not being productive. We're not doing the same old habits. And actually, it's those same old boring daily due diligent habits that get the deals done. It may be that you have a list of KPIs, so key performance indicators, that you want to achieve each day. So how many deals do you perhaps analyze a day? How many conversations do you have with agents? How many viewings do you do? Is there kind of weekly reviews of your goals, your next actions? What are you doing to increase your education on a daily basis? So, a great quote here is success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. It is really, really huge. So, remember, property success isn't just a single decision, it's literally loads and loads of tiny decisions that you consistently make. Um, and another quote that I love is habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. And as you know, that's a big one for me. So everything often grows really quietly in the background with all of these daily actions, daily habits, analyzing deals, massive, massive due diligence that eventually creates this good investor, so to speak, that gets the results. And of course, they still have things that go wrong, but it is constantly understanding, improving, and learning that keeps them going. So couple of books is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Such an excellent book. And if you really struggle to keep going when things get tough, then Angela Duckworth's Grit is so powerful to look at why perseverance often beats raw talent, actually. So you really can control your controllables. So if you do listen to the news, just turn it off. Honestly, you'd be amazed how much you still keep up to date with what's going on without being constantly bombarded by these just, sensational things. So just remember how you analyze your deals, how you fund them, how you plan your exits, how well you understand the demand. Who do you put in your properties? How do you manage them? And then obviously how you use your time, your focus, and your habits as an investor. So you may not be able to control every outcome, but you can always control your next steps. Oh my goodness. So this has been a really huge one, and I really hope that you will take a challenge this week to pick one controllable and think, God, I could really improve that. So really upgrade it. So maybe you want to tighten your deal analysis template. Maybe you want to have a more written exit plan for your property. Maybe you've got some things that have been going on with the tenants, and actually a few checklists might work better. Perhaps you want to have a 20-minute property power hour. Whatever it is, let me know what you choose. And yeah, really, really deep dive into that. And if this episode has helped you to see that you can control your own investing, the perfect next step to hear is from someone who's actually done it. So do go to and listen to episode 1, to the amazing Toyin. And she talks about her journey from really humble beginnings to 8-figure property portfolio. Her story is just incredible on how focused action, smart decisions, and an hugely powerful mindset can completely transform your life, no matter where you're starting from. So if you need proof that controllables really work in real life, then do pop to episode 1 and see it from there. So, of course, as always, if you know someone who's struggling on their property journey, please do share this episode. It could be that game changer that they really need. And remember, the more people we help, actually, the greater our own wealth in every sense of the word is. And growing this community means growing the potential we all have to succeed. So do remember, your mindset is your greatest property. Keep building it.